What lessons can we learn from the best drummers in the world? How they turn their passion to drums into a drumming business? Today, insights from JP Bouvet. A few years ago, I had the pleasure to interview JP because we invite him to our drum academy. He did 2 clinics in Poland. How this all happened. I think JP is a great example of a drummer who also create his own brand and his own business around his playing, his knowledge. I think this path is a great path to follow. I hope you will enjoy this interview and you will take away great insights. I asked him questions from our Drum Academy community. He shared, for example, the biggest lesson that he learned from being in Berklee School of Music. The second one was the best drum teacher for JP Bouvet. Who was he and what quality he had? And lastly, what is the most important thing in teaching? So if you are a drum tutor and you want to be better at drums, but at the same time you want to build your own drumming business, and you don't have to be such a prodigy like JP Bouvet, but I think everyone can get some piece of information, and for me it was super useful, and I used the tips that JP Bouvet did as well. So I hope you will enjoy the interview. So JP, first of all, thank you so much for your time and for doing this for our Drum Academy online community. And I have a lot of questions from our online community. The first one is about your drumming routine. Do you have your drumming routine, and is this drumming routine changed during your years, or you had one and you stick to it?
Yeah, it changes. It has changed a lot. And it changes depending on what I'm working on and how much time I have and what is coming up in the future. So, like when I was in college at Berklee, I spent a lot of time, more time than ever in my life, on more technical aspects. So speed, technique, independence in a very mechanical way. That type of thing I do very little of now, because I sort of established enough independence back then to do usually the problem now isn't independence. It's I've done enough of that so that for what I hear and what I would like to do, that's not what's limiting me. So at that time it was more structured. I was putting in really long hours in college because that's what you do. You're spending a lot of money to be at school, so you're better get your time in, you know what I mean? So, and then now I'm working on more musical concepts. So more trying to listen to my playing more objectively and hear what it sounds like and hear what I don't like about it, or pay attention to recordings and hear what is different from the other side. If I think something sounds really cool, but from the other side, it actually sounds very complicated and in a bad way, then I need to find a way to make that concept work in a way where the delivery is more digestible, but the concept stays sort of pure or whatever. Do I record myself?
Do you record, or do you listen during when you play? You try to be present and listen.
Mm-hmm. Or you record. I don't record my practice sessions that often, but when I'm practicing, even if it's just whenever I find something that I'm like, oh, this is really cool, I'm gonna post it on my Instagram, or I want to just remember it, then I'll record it. Or if I want to use it for my band, Childish Japes, just in a cool rhythmic idea. And those are sort of what I hear back. And usually, since those are the ideas that I'm working on, sort of the most forefront of what I'm trying to do, that's what I need to be listening to. That's sort of the feedback I'm trying to get. But also listening back to little clips from live shows with my band, or to the album that we just made, now that you've given it months of time since you played it, to listen back and be I hear it more objectively now. But also when I'm playing, I'm trying to get more and more to a place where the playing itself is automatic. And the more automatic the playing is, the more you can dedicate your ears attention to just hearing what's happening. So you'll never obviously have like a fully objective view as if you weren't playing it, but you can get a little bit closer. And I think that's where you start really just focusing on like the musicality, the effectiveness of what's happening, which is cool. Then the other factor that affects what I'm working on or my practice sessions is, again, what's coming up in the future. If we're about to record an album, there's usually like specific concepts and grooves that I'm trying to really get comfortable with. If I'm about to do a clinic tour, I'm thinking about more solo stuff, more, what's sort of, I'll be pushing my boundaries a little bit more to demonstrate those things. So yeah, it depends specifically what's coming up, but overall, I like to keep things pretty loose, have like general goals that I follow for a few months at a time or a few weeks. Sometimes I've done that for a whole year. Just have like a general, what I call an umbrella topic, like triplets or grooves or chops, and do tons of different exercises within that, but they're all stirring toward the same goal.
Yeah. Really nice. So you don't have like practice session, with a time or with your clock watching and like 1 hour this one, 1 hour this one.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that, but I don't usually do that. I don't naturally like operate in such a structured way, so it doesn't come naturally for me to do that. But I have done that in times when it made sense.
Thank you. Very important one. The other question is, do you have bad days, and what do you do to motivate yourself, like to do the work?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have bad days. Especially the worst days are if I've been traveling and I haven't been able to drum for a while. Usually like the first day is really disheartening because you feel your hands aren't working. It's not automatic. I've done that enough times though to kind of know in my head, like, okay, well, tomorrow will be better. And then the third day I'll be kind of back to normal. So now I kind of have a recognition that even if it sounds like crap today, I don't get real bummed out about it because I'm like, well, it makes sense. Like it should sound like crap and it'll get better. As far as what I do, I mean, I'm one to, again, this was different when I was younger. When I was younger, I would try to push through no matter what. Maybe take some breaks and some breathers here and there, adjust what I'm working on, try to work smarter instead of work harder. But honestly, now I'm a lot more loose with my practice. So like, if I'm having a terrible day, I'll just stop practicing. It's like, of course, if I were having a terrible day every day, that wouldn't be a good solution. I'd never get anywhere. So that only works in certain, in rare occasions. But if I'm sitting down and I'm just really not feeling it, or I'm tired, I'm like very foggy brained, I'll just be like, you know what? My time's better spent doing something else. I'm going to hang it up today. Yeah.
Cool. So you are listening to yourself and paying attention to this.
Trying more and more, yeah.
That's good. So I have another question about Berkeley College. What was the most important lesson that you learned there?
I mean, the most important thing, it's not really a lesson from Berkeley, is the network of friends and fellow musicians. Everyone who went to music school will tell you that, the same thing. As far as lessons, I guess there would be life lessons and musical lessons. I mean, the life lessons include like a lot of things, or let's say the playing lessons, like things I guess they overlap quite a bit, but things we know, but we don't always do, like consistency of practice and like structured, serious practice is kind of the only way to make big steps of progress, especially when you need to work on technical aspects like independence and technique and speed and stuff.
You said structures in the word that I don't understand.
Like your practice being structured, like not what I do now, but like what I did back then, which was more like I would always keep a notebook of what I was working on, so that I would usually work on like 3 things in a day. And I would keep very simple notes so that the next day when I came back, I'd know where to start. Because a lot of times, I'm sure a lot of people can sympathize with you sit down at the drum set and you're like, well, I want to get better at a million things, but which one do I choose? And then you end up doing sort of nothing or just like playing around. So a structured practice, like it's the consistency that's important. Yeah. And the other thing I think is really important, if I think back, which I don't think I realized I was learning this at the time. I couldn't have told you, but it made a big difference when I look back, is studying things because you see their value, honestly, instead of because someone told you you need to do them. I was very fortunate to have a private lesson teacher who essentially like saw where I was at in my playing and gave me just like cool ideas to explore. Like he could see that I was self-driven, so he didn't need to like, lay out every single exercise and like do this and then do this. He'd just be like, what do you think of this cool idea? I'd be like, that's a cool idea. We'd work on it. And then he wouldn't assign anything. Like, he'd just be like, yeah, work on it if you want. And a lot of those ideas became big parts of my playing because he left room for exploration. Everyone's different. Like some people like learning exact transcriptions. I never in my life have learned an exact transcription except for my audition to school. And my teachers never assigned them. Right? So it's all about improv. It's all about creativity, which then always enables you to be finding your own voice. Right? So if you're going to learn a foot ostinato, doom, to doom, to doom, yes, your first step's probably to like learn the basic samba, which is fine. But then it's like, okay, let me now see what I can do over this foot ostinato. And it doesn't need to sound authentically like a Latin American samba. I'm never going to be asked to do that. I don't like, the genre is really cool, but like, I don't have any attachment to it. So it's like, oh, that's useful outside of this genre. So let me take this sort of like basic elements of things and make them something that I think is actually interesting. Because a lot of people that go to music school, they end up being sort of like what I call like Berkeley box musicians, where they can like adequately do a lot of things and like sound fine, right? They can like fit into a lot of jobs. But that doesn't necessarily encourage you to develop your own voice. And I don't think it's very fun. Like the whole fun is like the exploration process. So looking back, I think the biggest lesson I would try to instill in someone is like work on things because you want to work on them, right? You see the value and you see where they could go, and spend time exploring those things and sort of making them your own. Because a lot of sort of like your everyday topics of like jazz or like pick a genre or like foot ostinatos or independence, they have like a normal track that people go down, and it's kind of boring. You kind of at some point want to jump off the track and be like, well, I'm going to go over here now and see what you can do.
Very cool. Thank you for this lesson also for me. Another question is about your turning point when playing on drum set. Did you have something like your turning point? For instance, I will read this question. You were playing something and you thought about it in a way that you had never thought before. What kind of moment were those?
I mean, the turning point in my career was the drum off. But I don't think that was a turning point in my playing. And part of the reason I feel very sort of disconnected from the drum off now is because my playing has changed enormously since then. Like what I thought was important then, I no longer think is important. What I thought was cool then, I no longer think is cool. The music I listened to then, I no longer listen to. So sometime, I don't think it was an exact moment per se, but I'd say sometime the drum off was 8 years ago, if you can believe it. I'd say sometime 4 years after that, so 4 years ago, I started to feel like I started to notice, like if I listened to my own playing, I'd sort of notice like, oh, this sounds like its own thing. Sort of like a style was emerging by accident. And during the drum off time, I was too young. I hadn't had enough time or explored enough concept or like matured enough to have a sound. It was more of like a display of technical proficiency, if you will. So I didn't think it was very musical. I didn't think it grooved very much if I look back now. And my focus has shifted in part because of what I'd looked back and be like, oh, it doesn't groove. It's not musical. It's too yada yada. So sometime around 4 years ago, I think my focus had like shifted. I had like unlearned music school, and I had become like a normal person again that was focused more on like music and expression, as opposed to like music school kind of like it encourages like technical proficiency and like merging all these new ideas into one, and like that's all good stuff. It needed to happen, but I feel like a voice started emerging maybe 4 years ago on the drum set, and I think that was when things really started to become my own. And that was when I would spend like, I remember having like an entire year where like my goal was like triplets. There's every possible usage of triplets. And then another year was like groove, just like how do I groove better? And like what this course is about, like how do I be creative within the context of a groove? It's been like an entire year, like really dedicated to that. And since I had taken those ideas so far, they became sort of like indicative of my style, if you will, just by accident again. Like your style sort of happens by accident based on what you've worked the most hard on.
When you said about this change, I had chills, like we are all like developing ourselves and growing, and to see that, and I'm like looking at you when you were at the drum academy like 6-7 years ago, and looking for like how your career grows, how you grow, and it's like, wow, it's really JP, it's like super impressive, and you are such a role model.
That means a lot. That means a lot. Not many people sort of see a before and after picture in the way that you have, and it really means a lot. What you just said, that you can see a growth.
Yeah,
I hope so, and that's part of why I'm really excited to come back and work more with you, because my playing has obviously like developed and changed, but my teaching, like I have so much more to teach, and I'm so much better at delivering the concepts, and I've developed so many other the methods and exercises, and like there's so many more connections between the different concepts in my teaching that I feel almost more confident about my teaching than my playing at this point. And I'm really excited. I'm really like sort of chomping at the bit, so we say, like I'm really overly excited to have opportunities to share some of these concepts in real life. Because I do my teaching online, but there's no audience, and there's I have some private students, but it's a little different. So,
one question from Michael: do you have a drum book that every drummer should study from the beginning till the end?
No.
Actually, what you said before, it was the answer for this question.
Yeah, I've never personally learned. I'm not a book learner, so on the drums, actually, in other ways, I love learning from books, but on the drums, I never really dug books. So no, I don't have one.
Good. And one more question from Violetta. Do you have some favorite snare exercise in odd meters?
Okay. Some favorite ones. So man, there's so many. So this is an occasion where it's hard to offer just one, because I would love to sit down with you and see like what you do typically, and what would be the next frontier, work that into the exercise. But as a general thing that is really good practice for everyone, and that a lot of people struggle with, is with odd times. If we're thinking like 7/8, for example, it's very easy to get stuck in like the box of the measure. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. And the problem is we have to accent one every time, or we get a little lost, a lot of us. So we don't do that in 4/4, because 4/4 is built in to our system. We hear it all the time, radio, with all the music we listen to. It's kind of similar with 3/4, but not really. So like 4/4 is really the only thing where we don't need to hit one ever, and we won't get lost. So what I would encourage people to do is some exercises that go over the bar line in odd times. So for example, you could play, again, this might be advanced, but if you break it up into individual measures, it's much more manageable. So for example, playing like groups of 3 or dotted eighth notes in 7/8, which would sound like, if I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1. So you notice I only accent 1 every 3 bars. If you wrote that out, the best way to work on it is actually not to do it all at one time. If you can, that's great, but do one line at a time. The first line will be fairly easy because it hits 1 every time. Then the second line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. So the second one starts, the first accent's on the end of 1. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Like that rhythm, play that on the kick drum. Or sorry, if you're on a practice pad, playing singles and accenting it like that, or doing right, left, left for the groups of 3. And figuring out that transition is going to be a little weird at the end, but that's good practice. Or if you're on a practice pad, just pretend it's a drum set. Like this type of exercise, you really can do all the coordination parts of it without a drum set. And then, if you can play 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, get, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. You can do that on your tapping on your pad, using your feet on the floor. When you come to the drum set, you should be able to do it there too. There might be a little period of like adjusting technique, and now you have sounds. It's like, oh, it sounds weirder than I thought it would. But that would be like a big step, because if you can not, hit 1 every single bar, then what you can do is start to think like 2-bar phrases. This is a big step for musicality, because you don't want to like abandon 1 altogether, because in odd times your listeners then might get confused, because we're not used to listening to odd times. So the anchor helps. But a first step in like expanding your musicality and your options in odd times is that only every other measure you'll hit 1. Right? So don't get, don't get 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, get boom, 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 get boom. It opens up so much space. It makes things way more musical and immediately way more unique than any of the grooves that like repeat every measure.
Thank you. Great exercise for every one of us. And last questions about also exercise from Marta. What example of warm-up exercise would you recommend as an optimal way to improve the coordination and creativity?
Coordination and creativity. Again, it really depends on what you're doing specifically, but I'm a pretty big advocate of warming up with the thing that you're going, like your main focus, if you will. So I don't usually recommend people do like, if you're about to work on like independence, I would not say, okay, first do like paradiddles on a snare to like warm up. Like that's totally irrelevant to your goal. So do a warm up that is essentially the same thing that you're going to be working on. And it's like, if you can just jump into it, then jump into it. But if what you're going to be working on is like fast or powerful and you feel like you do need a warm up, then like do a slow and soft version of the same thing. That's usually what I do when I sit down. I don't have any kind of warm up routine. I just start playing in a way that's not going to hurt me. And it's relevant to what I would like to practice, like with more vigor, if you will. So again, it's hard to give a specific detailed exercise there, because I don't know. There could be, one of thousands of different things you're working on there. But I think it's okay to just kind of jump in, do like a basic version of what you're about to be doing anyways.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Thank you. This all questions I had for you that I chose from our online students and followers. Thank you, JP, for your time, for doing this, for your course. I'm looking forward to see you in Poland on next Drum Academy camp with you. Hope it works out, and it will be great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Thanks for making time to do this interview, and I will see you soon.
See you soon, JP. Thanks. What I learned from JP was I was super inspired by the value he gave, and it was back then, like 10 years ago, when he started to vlog. I think he was one of the first drummers who was vlogging, and I did exactly the same. I was sharing like what I practice, what I do, how I run my drum academy back then, and because of vlog, I was able to make my first online course and sell it, and the first sell it was around $5,000, and I was blown away like how easy it can be to provide value, you know, for a 3 months, 4 months, and then give some products and create some products. JP Bouvet did exactly the same. This was the lesson that I looked at him. I was inspired by him, and it worked. Number one thing, vlog and showing up, it was like super useful for me. The second thing was that when you are open for business, make sure you will communicate it. What I mean by that, we often are drummers, and I had a question from drummers who are asking me, like, how can I have more students? And I checked Instagram or his social media, and there's nothing about that he is a drum tutor or that he is a drummer who is teaching. So this is super important to make sure you will give out this information. And with the JP Bouvet, the story was pretty funny, because in one of his vlog, he said this: I'm open for business. I'm planning to be in Europe. If in any cases you're in Europe and you want to do something together, hit me up. And it was like, yeah, let's do something with JP. At my drum academy in Poland, in Warsaw, I wrote to JP like, hi, I'm in Warsaw. I would love to do drum camp with you. Are you open for this kind of event? And he agreed. Because of the drum camp, I connect him to Polish DW company in Poland, based in Poland. So they organize additional 2 clinics for JP Bouvet. And this is how he get 2 extra gigs, drum camp in Poland. And it was because he said, I'm going there, maybe we could do something together. It was just so simple. And the third thing is that I really respect JP, and I really, respect his work. And beside of the drums, because his drumming is incredible, but he's also a great drum teacher. And the thing he did, I think it can be so inspiring for all of us drummers, is that he create his own products, his own streaming platform. So he's not reliable on Patreon or any other platform like school. He create his own online courses within his own website, and he's doing this, I don't know, for 10 years, for 8 years, and his consistency, like step by step, going to this one direction, and sending us every week drum lessons in his email. At the end, this is something that is super inspiring for me. I have so much to learn from JP. These are the things that create a success at the end. Small steps for a long time, and building his own brand, building his own drumming business. I took these lessons as vlogging, as, announcing, I'm open for business, and the third one, online courses and online platform, that you are the owner and you have the ownership of it. He don't have to deal with, YouTube, social media, because he's got email lists and he's got all these people in the one place. So I think it's super important. I hope this video was inspiring. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? What was your one biggest takeaway from this video or from JP Bouvet work? He's amazing, he's incredible. I am super grateful that this kind of people and this kind of musicians are around us. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye.